What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about the casting of Frank Stone. Now, this is a project I've been very curious about ever since it initially got revealed because it's a collaboration between Supermassive Games and Dead by Daylight. Essentially, two incredibly great teams coming together to make something very cool for the first time. So the studio hit me up and asked if I wanted to do a sponsored video to check the game out, so of course I jumped at the chance. So if this gameplay looks good, if the game seems enticing, you can use a link at the top of the description box to buy the game today on PC, Xbox, or PS5, but let's break down why this is cool. So, the casting of Frank Stone is very much an interactive horror movie, like the other Supermassive games have been that I've loved a lot, but this one gives you some extra freedom and choices to control your outcomes. Every path you walk, every puzzle you solve or argument you get into can lead to some pretty gory deaths if you aren't extremely careful. But what really grabbed me about this story the second I started playing it is all the characters we have and the different time periods. This is a dark origin tale to the endless serial killer of Frank Stone, and it's not a simple straight line. We experience chapters of the game in the 1960s, we follow some filmmakers in the 1980s and some current day survivors of those conflicts now in 2024, kind of guardedly discussing the legend of Frank Stone and how much of it is real or fake. What's so freaking interesting about this, though, is that this is so much a mix of different quirky horror archetypes, like in the best way. We've got punk rock outcasts, we've got dedicated bookworms or obsessive cops trying to solve the case, and what makes this so entertaining is that we get a chance to play all of these characters for at least a chunk of the game and determine how they act. It was cool when I got to actually be someone and respond to their buddies about how we wanted to make their horror film, which is called The Murder Mill, or alter the course of future events and future fates by trying to help people or telling other people they suck. Every area of the game has a main focus to it, whether it is an objective you're trying to reach or an item you need to find, something to interact with that will progress the plot. But you can also just search around to get extra collectibles and trigger these additional conversations. And while doing this, just chatting with the other heroes, I began to truly respect how stellar the acting is. Supermassive Games has some very good facial animations. They're kind of the masters of making people look lifelike. In a lot of these close-up dialogue sequences, the subtle cues and tiny movements of their faces are just so expressive, but even while just walking around, the voice acting is fantastic. Clearly, the whole cast knows exactly the vibe they're going for, and I freaking love that. But let's talk more about those branching paths. So, as you play through the game, all the different ways a situation can play out are wildly different. Let me give you an example. So, at one point, I was exploring this locked up train car. There was all these different spots of rusted, messed up stuff in this workshop. So, me and my crew popped into this car, we got it open, and we started climbing around on stuff, being delinquent teenagers. And so we decided to jump from one area to the next. But doing this, you have a decision. So I get a choice of, do I want to jump first and try and look manly? Do I want to go last? If I do go first, it can actually trigger an event where Robert here can fall if I don't actually grab his hand. There's a bunch of different ways where every part of the story has hundreds of different outcomes where you get in an argument. Who's going to like you? Who's going to hate you? Who's going to save you? Who's going to die? And I think that's just so cool because there are these little tiny decisions that you don't even think about. Towards the beginning of the game, I broke my camera while trying to film some stuff, and I had a choice. All right, do I want to go to the pharmacy and try and get it fixed? Or do I want to go to the antique shop and maybe haggle for an outdated camera that may be a lot cheaper? And these branches create different outcomes that sometimes can be surprisingly fatal in ways you probably didn't predict. But this brings me to the completely new feature which is added to the casting of Frank Stone called the cutting room floor. Now, this has never existed in any previous Supermassive game, but it is such a cool feature. I hope they add this to their future stuff. So the way it works is that once you beat the game, or if you buy the deluxe edition, you can access this thing where on the main menu, you can see all the branching paths. Now, it doesn't spoil it, it doesn't tell you what it is, but it'll essentially will like hint, here's the path you took, but here's the other paths that other people are taking. So you can sometimes try and figure out, it stokes your curiosity to go, wait a minute, I didn't even realize a choice could be made here. Like sometimes hesitating in an extra room, swiping an extra area, or filming something extra. These can open up extra completely different paths where people live or people die. And to me, that's incredibly epic because you can rewind directly to this. If you want to see those other branching paths, you don't have to completely redo the entire game like 15 times, although honestly it would be fun to beat this game 15 times. You can just rewind to the specific sections that you are interested in and try the path from there. It's a great way to see more of the story without doing a bunch of fresh playthroughs. But if you are the kind of person that wants to replay this again and again and again, they do have couch co-op where you can actually just pass the controller back and forth and each play a different character. They have Twitch integration where if you stream this, people can help you decide what you want to do. I think that every part of this feels like a horror movie made by people that enjoy it. It's so freaking great watching Frank Stone, who is just such a terrifying, weird, magical villain. I think that's so nice. It makes connections and homages and references to Dead by Daylight, but you don't gotta understand Dead by Daylight to understand this game. Instead, it's more of just a cool extra thing of like, oh, there's a guy on a hook, or oh, I'm fixing generators. And it does connect to like the grander lore of it. So I feel like Dead by Daylight fans will love this game for what it's doing. I feel like Supermassive fans are going to love this because it's just such a great next sequel to that series they love so much. I feel like horror fans are going to eat this up. But if you're curious about it, if this strikes your fancy, be sure to use my link in the description box and get it today because it is a very, very good time and definitely play with your friends. But thanks for watching. What do you think about the casting of Frank Stone, and does this seem cool to you? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.